headset. Welcome to part 14 or 15, part 15 of the Digital Age series, where I dive deep into the rollout of digital technology and as we creep deeper and deeper away from the analog humanity that we really are. My name is Amelie. I am the host of Soulestic Intelligence. I'm also the founder of Soulestic Intelligence. And if you are watching this, I have a July special going on. It's $125 to get your Soulestic Soul Map. The Soulestic Soul Map is a bunch of words for me to put together and trip over. But it's also a human design, gene key, and astrology chart reading for you to get the in-depth blueprint, the imprint that you were born into in the portal that you came into this world. And it's really helped to design to show you what your gifts are, show you where maybe some of your shadows are, and to really look at the strong themes in your profile. I'm going to say that when I did this 3 years ago, and it wasn't in this way. I'm just combining all of these good, delicious informations together to give you the best toolbox that you can have to perform at your highest function. So if you're interested in that, please reach out to me. You can reach out to me at Amelie or at Soulestic Intelligence. You can reach out to me on Facebook, Instagram. You can also chat here and just say soul map in the comment section if you're watching this after the live. But I do want to promote that. It comes with a 30-minute energy session after your profile is complete. I deliver it to you in a PDF format to your email. And it's a great way for you to really channel into what is my purpose? What is my life's work? What gets me excited? What are the trips that that could happen? Help illuminate my path so I can be a lot more streamlined and functionable. Okay, so with that, I don't have any sponsors, so I have to promote that. All right, well, let's get started. I want to talk today about digital identities. Now, digital identities can be thought of as digital avatars. So think the avatars, even now they're becoming AI generated. And then you can actually create avatars as part of like the phone functions if you have a smartphone. And then, overall, there's like deep fakes. We'll get into all of these identity things, but let's just start from the beginning. So, digital avatars and digital identity disassociation, this is the evolution of it. So, we're talking digital. We're not talking about back in the day masks. We'll kind of talk about that, but we're talking about as the digital age is starting. So first in the 70s and 80s, you have these 1970s and 80s, you have these proto avatars in text-based multi-user dungeons. So think D&D, and maybe there's some other games. Dungeons and Dragons just comes to mind because it's so popular. But it allowed players to embody characters through prose, so through improv and these enacting these scenarios. Now, one can argue that even actors and actresses kind of go through this avatar. It's more of an analog avatar where they're embodying a certain character that maybe isn't like themselves. And there have been reports of where people kind of go crazy. I think of Heath Ledger. Heath Ledger, when he was doing that Joker for Batman, he was definitely embodying a different character. And I think that kind of fragmented his mind and broke him a little bit, where he was disassociated from himself and was so engrossed in this Joker character that it caused his mind to basically split. So it was kind of an extreme example of that. So the embodiment, the becoming something else other than yourself, really creates this identity disassociation. So in 91, that's the first time the word avatar is used. So in a digital context, this appears in the game Habitat by Lucasfilm, and Lucasfilm is Star Wars. So the word avatar is used in that digital context. So I don't know if anybody's played that game, but pop in the chat if you have. And then we have the 2000s, and I talked about this in my gaming and VR stream on the digital age, is you start with Second Life, and Second Life came out when I heard about Second Life. I don't even think it was in 2003. It was like a couple, maybe a year or two later after it actually had come out. But Second Life comes out, and it's kind of like The Sims, but it's on this like you're in the multiverse, the metaverse at this time, like connecting with others. So it really was like this beginning position into connecting to this global network, which I'm finding as I'm doing my investigation here is causing a lot of issues to come up. It really reveals, it's like a black mirror, but it's still a mirror, and it's revealing a lot about ourselves in the way that we do media and everything. And maybe we'll talk about that today, the media. All right. So you have the Second Life, you have Sims, and World of Warcraft. Who hasn't heard of WoW? Which normalized this virtual self-representation of your identity. So you kind of create these identities online, and in these games, you can act them out. So you're basically becoming this avatar online and breaking away from your physical avatar or your physical being as your avatar or identity. So that was in the 2000s, and then we move into the 2010s. So in the 2010s, now we have social media. So social media begins, you've got your Facebook, you've got YouTube, and then Instagram comes on the scene, and really a lot later, TikTok comes on the scene. And these social medias are accelerating this idea of curated identity. So you have a lot, and if you go back and watch social influencers, I was talking about some of the Instagram models. The Instagram models, they go on and they, post these really sexy pics to get a lot of attention, and it works. It works really, really well. And one of the Instagram models kind of went full ham, deleted all of her photos, and then tried to come back on the scene, but she was like being a whistleblower of, this is fake, it's not real. Almost like she had her own little identity crisis of sorts. And then in the 2010s, you also have this rise of virtual tubers. So think YouTubers where they're going on and again, I talked about that in the rise of social influence in that stream a couple streams ago. So if you want to get the full meal deal on that, go listen to that. You can listen to it. I don't know if listening to me on 2x is like wise, because I do talk fast sometimes. So maybe 1.5 is good. And then in the 2010s, you also have this rise of filters. So I think about Snapchat, where you have like the little puppy faces and the kitty faces, and the Snapchat world. The filters start coming out on Instagram. So, you have these filtered faces that make them look really fully done up. Talk about catfishing. Catfishing is like a huge thing in this realm of avatars and filters. And then Bitmojis. So Bitmojis are increasing, which is like this avatar identity of what yourself looks like. And now we see it everywhere. It's just super common. So in 2020, as the pandemic is accelerating remote life, this pushes Zoom fatigue. It pushes Teams and Slack and remote connections. You know, there was a huge jump in the space of remote work, of what is remote work and how do we get aligned with that. So Zoom is not only affecting the workplace, it's also affecting healthcare. It's also affecting educational sites and institutions. So you have this almost this avatar based classroom, because now instead of being face to face, person to person, it's mostly online. And pandemic just pushed that into the um, into the norm. Now it's a cultural norm. We're not like shocked by having online meetings. We're not shocked by having online doctor's appointments. So you know there was a lot of advancements as far as what that remote life looked like. And then even Meta, when Meta bought out Instagram, they it used to be Facebook that you know Zuckerberg was the CEO of, and then when they bought out Instagram, they changed their name to Meta, and that was like I want to say 3 years ago. I think it was 3 years ago. So you have the avatarization of yourself, and then now these avatars are even pushed further into this remote life, using the pandemic as an acceleration of digitizing not just identity, but like a lot of things were being digitized at the time. And now, you know, fast forward 2023 to 2025, generative AI is enable deep fake influencers. In fact, I was scrolling through my reels earlier today because I wanted to see, you know, what's the rate here of what's the rate here of people using AI. I'm back. Yeah, I'm back. I was gonna come on later, but my son, it's his birthday today. So my oldest son is turning 20 today, or turned 20 today, and I'm waiting for him to be available. We're gonna go. I'm gonna see if he wants to go get a boba and maybe a meal or something like that. But I want to give him his gift. But anyways, so yes, happy birthday. Happy 2-0. It's like end of the teens, right? You're in a whole nother decade of life. It's pretty cool. So generative AI is enabling these deep fakes and AI driven digital doubles. And I've been noticing them everywhere. Like I said, this year was a serious acceleration of AI deepfake. In fact, you know, one of my friends mentioned that their director, or no, not the director of sales, like one of the higher ups, just comes in for 5 minutes, talks to the AI, deep fake, mentions a thing, and then takes off. And then the AI just copies his image, copies his voice, and then makes the whole, you know, the whole thing that he's doing, that he's trying to sell. So it's part of his sales strategy is to use these AI digital doubles, basically, these AI doppelgangers. Companies are rolling out these digital employees and voice avatars. So, you know, think replica and think synthesia. I think that's how you say it. But these companies are rolling out these digital employees, and they're taking over, you know, some of the data entry. They're taking over some of the, they're using it for coding. They're using it to, you know, spot things that are needed to be done, even up to being like the digital assistant of the digital receptionist, or somebody who is fielding phone calls. In fact, I saw a video where this lady she was calling her husband, and she was calling and she was talking to the receptionist, and the receptionist is like, oh, well, he'll get back to you in like 24 hours. And she's just thinking, 24 hours? I'm his wife, right? And she didn't realize it was AI, or maybe that was the trick to the ad. But she was like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize it was AI. I thought he really got an assistant. I was going to give it to him because I'm like, why would you field me and tell me you'll get back to me in 24 hours? So it was kind of a funny ad, but it's not far off from where we're at in our culture right now, in our business culture, in the way that we treat commerce. It's really affecting and changing the field dynamic of what business is, what commerce is. Um, and then it also is doing voice avatars as well. So you can essentially be faked on the internet. People could fake me for all I know. I don't know if they want to, but that is a possibility that people are have availed to them with the current technology that we have. And then in 2025, we have this personality as a service, which begins through emotionally intelligent AI. And there is emotionally intelligent AI chatbots that try to help you. They're like, what were some of them? They're like these mental health bots that you can talk to that will help you get through a hard time and or like navigate difficult situations and just be really helpful. Of course, is what all AI is. But that's essentially the timeline that we're looking at as far as digital avatars in this kind of this link to identity disassociation. So let's talk about some case studies about fractured digital identity, because it really is something that happens if you're not equipped to juggle these multiple identities or these multiple personalities. It can cause a rupture of your mind. So let's look at it. So the VTuber dissociation. So we had a female Twitch streamer turned VTuber, and her symptoms began where she began identifying more with her animated character than she did with her real world self. So when that happened, she experienced derealization and body dysphoria. Body dysphoria is real, and like I said, the mind doesn't know any different. It's thinking like everything is real. Everything is real when it's filtered through your mind. So if it's popping out, it's being filtered through your mind. And I think it starts with that little internal identity box. But so the insight here is it reinforced how digital personas can supplant your physical self-connection, especially when you get rewarded socially and financially with likes and even little bit monies like lemons on D Live, or I don't know what Twitch is, but you have like all of these alternative ways of payment where people can send you coins. I think it's coins through like Facebook. So if you're like collecting all these coins, you're like, oh my gosh, look at how many coins I collected because I'm so engaged in Facebook. You can get socially rewarded and financially rewarded. And every time you are, there's this dopamine rush. So you're like, more, more, more. And you start associating yourself, your value with how much you're being rewarded in that social, like how many people are subscribed to your channel, or financially, how many people are sending you delicious little lemons on D Live, or sending you money in super chats on YouTube, or whatever Twitch does. I think it's kind of similar to the others. But you're able, and I think as Rumble Bananas, I can't remember. But anyways, it almost like self-perpetuates this fractured digital identity, and pushes it, because then you're, if it, even if you're young, like you're young, you're a little bit more susceptible to this. I didn't allow my son to get a YouTube channel. Well, he sneakily signed up for it, but he was, I think it was 11 when he signed up for it, and I was like, no, you need to wait. And then I finally allowed him to have a YouTube channel late last year. It was, after his 12th birthday. And then he wanted to get a Discord, and I was like, Discord is even more responsibility. So it was really this waiting for him to be a little mature to handle the internet, one. And then, even online, like even with our consoles, I don't allow him to have like open access to the internet, open access to like all of these people, all of these personalities. While he was young, I just refused to do it. A lot of parents aren't really monitoring that, but I was like, I can't allow you to be subject to the public in that way. And I'm glad that I did, because I waited until he demonstrated maturity. And then I was like, okay, you're close enough to 13. Now you can have your, Discord channel. I'm approving that. Now you're old enough to have, this next thing. So we'll just work on this slowly and make sure that mentally you're mature enough to handle some of the big public space ideas that happen on the internet. I mean, they let us run rampant on the internet. I remember being like 13, 14 in AOL chat rooms, or something like AOL chat rooms. And they're like, oh, watch out for, the creepy people. And you're just like answering ASL. Pretending to be like older than you were. Never heard of DLive. DLive is another streaming service. It's kind of like Rumble, it's kind of like Twitch, where it's like mostly a gamer environment where they're like streaming video games. But just an example. You don't have to have heard of of any of these. And then, okay, let's look at another case study. So, Meta's Horizon Workrooms. The subject is a tech employee who spends 30 plus hours a week as an avatar. So, the symptoms, this tech employee reported feeling numb when not online, numb, and then struggled with face-to-face social interactions. So imagine just being so, like, that's your job, is to just be an avatar online. Let's say that you have to be the paperclip from Microsoft, right? You have to be the paperclip. Sorry. I can't remember what the paperclip's name is either, so it's pretty funny. But the symptoms is he started reporting feeling numb from not being online, from not being that avatar, from not wearing that avatar. And so the insight here is that the prolonged virtual immersion can reshape self-concept and dull emotional range in real life. Prolonged virtual immersion can reshape your concept of yourself, your identity, and dull your emotional range in real life. Okay? So, as we have these tech employees who like are acting like avatars, they're showing us the dangers of it. In fact, we had VR and I was very hesitant about allowing him to have VR, especially since his prefrontal cortex isn't fully developed. I'm thinking about how am I protecting my children and still giving them a little bit of a taste of what virtual reality is if they're interested in it. Giving them a taste of what it's like to, manage your own YouTube channel. giving them a taste of what it's like to manage your own server room, and being really cognizant of what it's like to have the virtual age, sex, location. Do you remember that? Age, sex, location. It's funny. I think there might be like a little bit of a lag, but ASL. ASL. It was, yeah, anyways. So, when the Oculus came out, I was like, oh my gosh, that's gonna like mess with somebody's brain because you think it's real. And remember, I went to that round one, I was doing that virtual machine. I could feel the sensation as the goggles are on, as I'm doing the virtual game. I can feel the physical sensation in my body of going through the animated world of Jurassic Park or whatever it was. King Kong, I don't know, some sort of virtual game. Send to receive, yeah. Pixar didn't happen. Oh my gosh. So you're seeing how this prolonged virtual immersion, so think about all the hours that you're playing. Oh, I have a story. Okay. So I know that we talked about video games, but I'm just demonstrating this to show you like how powerful these video experiences can be. So in I was young. I was working at a mill, and I caught my finger in the saw, and I couldn't go to work because my finger was all jacked up. And I was like, oh my gosh, well, I'm not working, so I may as well like keep myself occupied. So we had Grand Theft Auto on PlayStation, or maybe it was on Xbox. My brothers had it. And I was like, huh, well, I guess if I'm going to be stuck here in the house, I may as well play a video game to keep my mind occupied, right? I swear, I played like 3 days straight. I maybe slept like 15 hours. And I had played 3 days straight of Grand Theft Auto. I can't remember if it was 3 or 4. I think it was, doesn't matter. And so I became so immersed in just those 3 days. My mom was like, okay, you need to get out of the house. Let's go to the grocery store. And I'm like, okay. So, she's driving us down. It's not very far, maybe a mile and a half. And I'd just gotten off this like 3 day ride of playing Grand Theft Auto. I think it was 3 or 4. And so we're driving, and I see a cop car driving down. I don't know why I'm sharing this. It's funny though, but it's also serious. So we're driving down, and I see this cop car driving up towards us, and I feel my bodily urge from just playing 3 days straight of Grand Theft Auto to grab the wheel and like run the car into the cop car. That's how crazy this immersion can be. And that was just, 3 days straight. That was a lot, but at that early age, I think I was like 19 or something. I like realized how how immersive. It wasn't even an online thing. It was all like a sandbox. But how immersive. Hi, Nasir. Aw, you're sweet. You're darling. How immersive it was to be really ingrained in the storyline of the video game and really start to identify with the character. I was playing this mob boss, like this made man, or maybe I was trying to get made, I don't know. So yeah, like I can imagine this tech employee who's doing this for 30 hours a week is is feeling like, oh my gosh, I am that avatar. Our brains are amazing. Okay, number 3 case study is the AI companion. So think Replica. These are character AI. They even have like where it's, You can be a dom or a sub. You can have, I mean, any fantasy that you can think of, you can act out in these character AI chatbots. And you can even create your avatar to look the way that you want it to look. And so with the AI companionship chatbots, generative AI chatbots, you also have this parasocial merge. Oh, you missed me? I've been going, I went for 2 hours earlier today. So the subject is a lonely male user of replica AI. So this guy is using replica AI. You do have to pay for it. I think it's like $100 a year or something like that. But his symptoms is he developed this romantic dependency on his bot. And then he became socially isolated. And then he lost interest in all human interaction. So you have this guy that's becoming emotionally and romantically dependent on this bot to give him the social interaction. In fact, I've heard of people using ChatGPT in that same thread, in that same plane. I say, you wife. So the insight here is you have emotional labor and intimacy that is being performed by AI. And it can create these psychological bonds that overrides your human needs. This is an actual case study. So if you're really becoming dependent on the AI to give you these, I mean, they're needs. We all have these psychological needs. We all have these intimate needs. And usually that comes from human to human contact. But even like in Japan, they have waifus and husbandos. And they're like these avatar partnerships. It's like a norm over there. So just kind of be thinking about that. I mean, we're talking about the identity and like this merging of this parasocial connection that we have with AI. Just be really cognizant of that relationship and, try not to be socially isolated. Aw, you're sweet. Okay. So let's look at digital identity and disassociation. So the digital skin is now the avatar as yourself. And there's roots of this, pre-digital age. It is, think of like masks or demons or totems. Sorry, I have to get some lotion. So we've got like roots in these myths. So you've got masks, and we've heard of masks, we've heard of totems, and we've heard of demons, not demons as in bad demons, but demons as in like this kind of part of yourself that you kind of, that you can disassociate with. So a mask, obviously, you can identify that, but like a demon is Daemon, which is like this part of yourself, this like, it was in his dark materials, like in that world, instead of having an invisible demon, they had like a physical demon that came in the form of some sort of animal or insect or some sort of living being that followed them around. So, the main character had this really cute ferret. Another one of the characters had like an ocelot. Another character had, like the witches, they all had like hawks or these really beautiful raptor falcons and owls and all that kind of stuff. But that was their demon. And in their world, like if you didn't have a demon, it was considered weird. It was like if you didn't have that, it was strange to them. And then obviously totems. You have totems that have all of these faces on it. And so, that's another representation. So gaming and early forums have these avatars as the kind of your like soul projection. So whatever your avatar is, like that's a representation of you. So you know, you pick like Homer Simpson or Bart Simpson, or you can pick Invader Zim, or something that you align with in your identity that you can showcase of, yeah, see my avatar, this is how I identify, or whatever. I am 41. 20 years ago I had my first child. It's crazy. So this is the birth of your aesthetic self. When you create an avatar, it's like this rebirth of this digital self. And then to like compound that a little bit further, you have the like, I know when just being Native American, you can have an Indian name. So my children have Indian names. And I played World of Warcraft for 6 years, but what a waste. What a waste, but yeah, digital characters. You get it. Like, you become the player, that your avatar that you have, and it almost consumes a little part of you. It just like merges into you. The parasocial merge. There was even an economy. Yeah, it's like it got expensive. That was one of the first massive, the massive like multiplayer verse. You're very dear. Ah. So, moving from this birth of your aesthetic self, let's look at mirror rooms. And this is a representation to simulation. So, what do I mean? So, we're looking at like social media's kind of narcissistic web. So, when you go on to like Facebook and you look at a profile, you're like looking at the profile, and usually like that profile has, oh, I'm connected, like I like all this kind of music, I like these movies, I like these musicians, and then they share their political views, and it's all you. It's just like this like mirror room of yourself, and or maybe how you want to see yourself. And the thing with social media, I'm just using Facebook as an example, but let's think of like Instagram. So Instagram, you go on, everyone looks super polished. They've got these beautiful filters. They're looking perfect. They've got accentuated curves. They're standing just right, or they're working out, and you're seeing this like transformation of themselves. And so you have all these filters. You have all these face edits. So the filters can put on like the perfect makeup, and they're going to look the most perfect. There's not going to be any imperfections. They look perfect. And then eventually it kind of moves past this representation period into a simulation. Now you identify the time, or you identify with that content. Now you don't even want to show your real face or your real skin. I was watching My Mom Jane. It was about Jane Mansfield. And Jane Mansfield was this really beautiful actress, around the same time as Marilyn Monroe. And she had this like dumb blonde physique, but she had like these beautiful curves. She was, her measurements were 40, 21, 35 and a half. And, she was just this blonde bombshell. And everyone expected her to be this dumb blonde bombshell, but she was actually very talented, very, very talented, but had this persona that she had to show up as. And she abided by. That's why I said actors and actresses are no different. Heath Ledger is one of them. Marilyn Monroe, to a certain extent, created this Marilyn Monroe avatar. Her name is, she was born different name, Norma, but then she like became Marilyn Monroe, and in that, it fractured her identity, which eventually led to her death. And kind of a similar fashion, Jane Mansfield also had this fracture of identity. So, she came from Texas, she went to Hollywood, and she wanted to be a star, and her husband's like, he did not want to be in California, Hollywood area. And so she ended up staying in like, she had went through all of these acting classes, and she had done all of this amazing stuff. She was very talented. She could play the violin, she could play the piano, and she knew like 5 different languages. So she was like very well linguistically talented. She was able to act really well. And then she was also like talented in music and maybe not so much singing, but she did get gigs singing because she was so multi-talented. But she had to show up in this like fake way. She had to show up as Jane Mansfield. But Jane Mansfield, this dumb blonde, which she wasn't. So, even I was watching the documentary, and her kids were like, anytime I heard her public voice, I like turned away and I just wanted to get away from her because it wasn't it wasn't my real mom. It wasn't the mom that I was experiencing at home. It was this public persona that I did not want to be identified with. I did not want to be around because it wasn't her. It was somebody else. So kids know, right? That's why having your inner child activated is so important. Time flies, yes. Brickfinger says idealized versions, playing the role in real life. Yeah. Idealized versions of yourself on World of Warcraft, idealized versions of yourself in this celebrity public arena. I love your lips and beautiful nose and beautiful eyes. You're so sweet, Mirza. No filters. No filters today. One of the worst things ever, those filters. I know, it's like a weird catfish. I mean, sometimes I use them when I'm feeling goofy. But for the most part, I'm like, you kind of have to see me in my real whatever. So that's like an early version of this becoming content. And now it's even easier because now we have all of these apps and we have these filters available to us, and we have, the deep fakes available to us. So we can take our identities and like broadcast it in different ways and really not have to show for it. But I don't know how effective it's going to be. People are not going to, they're going to see it and they're not going to be really excited about it, I think. I don't know. My hypotheses, my theory. So simulation theory meets digital branding in this mirror room. The digital branding, we did talk a little bit about that. Like that is also connecting with this digital identity, right? So the digital branding, the personal branding. Sorry, let me just say on the phone. Okay, where was I? We were talking about digital branding. Okay, let me see where I'm at. So yeah, the simulation that you're creating, the simulation, it is meeting this digital branding as it's like compiling the things together. All right, let's move on. So when the flesh stops talking. So in this, we have digital fatigue, and then you have the body disconnect. So remember, in the first case study, when we were talking about the VTuber, that female Twitch streamer who turned VTuber, she experienced identifying more with the character than her real world self. And she experienced a bit of body dysmorphia with that. So when we're in the flesh and we're not communicating with it, it's gonna shut offline. So that's where digital fatigue comes in, it sets in, and then the body has this disconnect from itself. Like, you basically imagine like your energy body, whatever that looks like, your soul energy body. Now it's like connected into the digital world. Instead of connected into yourself, it's connected into that digital world. And we talked about the guy who got his replica girlfriend. The AI relationships are now a replacement for intimacy. The AI relationships are now a replacement for intimacy. In fact, video game streaming, I think, is a way that a lot of people actually do meet in real life people. Like, they can actually meet people that way. Yeah, the soul shatter. What a great term. I like that. Soul shatters. Like, your soul shattering from not being connected to yourself, and it's like connected into this digital world. And when your flesh stops talking, you experience avatar grief and memory entrapment. Like, your cognitive functions start to get fried. That's another good word for it. Trying to use a technology term. I think fried is pretty good. You get fried. And so avatar grief and memory entrapment can happen because your mind is fried. It doesn't cognitively know where to plug in. And when you start disconnecting from your body, like, you need to be present in your body. Like, even being stuck in the past, worried, or being stuck in the future, anxiety, when you're experiencing those fears, you're not present in the body, and that causes mental health issues, right? If you're constantly like on edge and you have like an OCD disorder, you might have a really high level of anxiety, but really at the base of it, your central nervous system isn't plugged into your soul. And that fragmentation of being in chronic stress, being in chronic worry, being in chronic anxiety causes mental distress. So it can come through as, like, I'm going to get really wild. So I'm going to say, allegedly, could it be that when your nervous system is so out of whack in survival mode, it causes ADHD, it causes ADD, it causes OCD, it causes neurodivergent symptoms. Because your nervous system is saying, red alert, there's something going on that's wrong here. Like, we're not present in the body. Since I'm not present, I'm not able to regenerate and repair. We're not sitting in rest and digest. I'm always on high alert, high alert, high alert. I think that's where all the stomach issues are coming from, because you're in constant stress. It's where the brain fog comes from, constant stress. Disconnected from yourself. If you're not present with yourself, you're disconnected. In life trauma also adds to that drive to associate with the avatar. Yeah, well, it's true. That's why we have addictions. Addictions are a way to numb us from us wanting to be connected with ourselves. It's so painful. Even the inability to like socialize human to human contact, like that inability, it doesn't come from other people not wanting to be around you. It comes from you having this fear of being seen, fear of being too much. And I did this whole thing this morning with self abandonment. Like, if you self abandon and you're people pleasing, or you become hyper dependent, or what are my other things that I, hyper independence, numbness, fantasy bonding, or fantasy escaping, like we're doing with the replica boyfriend or girlfriend. Like, those are all coping mechanisms, and there's more coping mechanisms, but if you're in coping mechanism mode, you're in fear mode. And when you're in fear mode, that is survival mode. And when you're in survival mode, that means you're in a sympathetic nervous system state. And all of the things that would normally be operating optimally are not operating optimally. It, I can't tell you how much of this just comes down to poor nervous system regulation. Spotify gift card. All right. I'm gonna keep going. What are we at? 51 minutes. Oh my gosh. All right. Let's keep going on. So next, we have fragmented mind. So this identity as as splintered myth. So, a lot of the times I'm integrating myths into my work here, into the series. I'm integrating archetypes into the series because the stories that are passed down, especially the older stories, always have a fractal truth that we need to look at to compare to our current circumstances and see, like, where are we in this. So the dissociative behaviors come through in VR use. Okay. So virtual use, avatar use, we can become a little bit more aligned with these dissociative behaviors. So the parallels to psychological fragmentation, think Jungian complexes. So Carl Jung, he did all the archetypes, he did all the shadows. Like, a lot of it, my work is based on his, beginning work of really aligning all of these things in a psychological way, personality wise. So we can parallel a lot of this dissociation to these union complexes that he outlined in his theories. This is also another could it be, but is this kind of a modern day possession? And AI is kind of like the inner voice. Are we being possessed by the machine? Are we being in the world or of the world? Yeah, sorry, Mirza, I'm not looking to get married on a chat. I really appreciate your appreciation for my stream. Okay, let's look at reclaiming wholeness and soul retrieval in our digital age. So I was talking about soul retrieval earlier, in like letting yourself become disconnected in a relationship. So thinking that somebody who's kind of breadcrumbing you, or situation shipping you, or friends with benefitsing you, and all of a sudden, like, now you have feelings and you're recognizing your feelings, and your feelings are telling you this is not the place that I want to be. You have to figure out, do you want to continue going through the heartbreak of not choosing yourself and abandoning yourself, or do you want to reclaim yourself and do a little bit of a soul retrieval and bring back that soul back into your presence? So and one of the things we're going to practice remembering ourself. So really just being present in ourself, whatever that means. If it means you have to go cold plunge a river, go cold plunge a river. If it means that you need to stick your face in an ice bath, do that. If it means that you have to sit there and hum or even sing terribly at the top of your mouth, like some Ozzy Osbourne song, then go do that. Like, bring yourself back to yourself. Activate your vagus nerve. Activate that nervous system. The vagus nerve, if you speak, if you're clearly expressing, like that can clear out a lot of the junk. If you sing, it can clear out your junk. That vagus nerve, it stimulates it. Do some analog rituals for grounding. If you gotta, walk around on the dirt somewhere, go to the beach and sit by the oceans if you're close enough. Go to the top of a mountain and just like be at the top of a mountain. Go sit at a waterfall. Go for a nature walk. Like, whatever you got to do to get grounded, figure out what that looks like. But the best way to do that is I really like going to hot springs when it's in the wintertime because the stark difference between hot and cold just feels really good on my skin. Um, Another one is I like to listen to Indian, like Native American music, like the chanting and the drum beat, and something about it is just really soothing. So, the drum beat is representative of the mother's heartbeat when you're in the womb. And then you have the singing, and it's just a really nice thing for me to hear. I like to hear that. Scoop that prana. Yeah, go get you some prana. And then restoring your identity in a synthetic landscape. So rewriting the story of what that looks like, reclaiming your self identity, and then creating that separate identity. And I don't know how many of you are familiar with human design, but I do soul map chart readings, so we can definitely take a look at that. But I'm a human design reflector, so every single one of my energy centers are completely unfilled, meaning that I am super receptive in every aspect of the whole collective, of an environment, of a room, of a team, of a person. And so I'm super receptive to that. But then my G center, which is our love, our identity, our purpose, like that's all sitting there. And I have zero gates in it. Like there's like zero. It's not even just unfilled. It's also like ungated. Okay. I call it ungated. Ungated isn't even a word. I use it anyways. Like I created it. I didn't know what else to do. But so for me, if if I'm trying to get an identity, it's going to be really difficult for somebody like me because I just am not going to have that identity. My identity is fluid based on who I'm around, based on the environment that I'm in. That dictates my identity. So my identity is going to be very fluid. But the rest of me is not going to be as fluid. Probably a little bit more, but it's like more amplified when it has the lack of gates in it. But if it has some gates in it, it has a little bit of definition. It's still amplified, but it's not as amplified as the ungated gates, if that makes any sense. So, what are the psychological dangers of splitting your mind and splitting your identity? Okay, sorry about that. I probably have to pop off here in like 15 minutes. I still have a lot to go through. Might have to do an identity part 2. Okay. So the psychological dangers of splitting your mind or splitting your identity when you're not built to have a fluid identity. So somebody like me, I can have a fluid identity. I'm like one of those unique peoples that can go into the belly of the beast and come back out and be fine. especially like with all of the knowledge that I have of the stories of going into these like deep chaotic undergrounds, of going into the shadow of my coping mechanisms and being able to come out of it, going into the shadow of my behaviors and being able to come out of it, going to the shadow of those emotions and being able to come out of it. Like, I've been practicing and working on this for a long time. But if you're going to go and take on an identity and you don't have that kind of energy where you're able to go into an identity and come out of it like easily. I used to like think I was a crazy person because I had like so many different emotions. I'm like, oh, maybe I'm just a woman that goes through like 100 emotions a day. I'm just like, I feel all the emotions, especially if I'm around a whole bunch of people. I'm feeling like all kinds of emotions. I must be a crazy person. No, I'm not a crazy person. I'm just able to like feel not just mine, but everybody else's. I'm not able to feel just my identity or feel my purpose. I can feel everybody else's, their thoughts, like everything. I can feel the swirling like things in that are going on in humanity. But that's how my energy's built. And so that's why I suggest you get a Soulestic Soul Map so that you can figure out how your energy is and where it is that you need to be really centered and present in your own energy, and then where you can take energy from the collective and use that as your guide. So let's talk about cognitive dissonance. So cognitive dissonance is holding conflicting beliefs or realities, which leads to chronic stress, anxiety, and confusion. Okay? So you say one thing in your avatar, and your avatar is like, let's say my avatar is like this big hulky man, and you know, he's like bodybuilder, and totally not me, right? I'm not a bodybuilder. I'm definitely a woman, and but my avatar is like this big barbarian looking like Hercules godlike figure, just beefy and bulky. And so like I go in and I'm like acting like this guy, like eventually my mind is gonna like get a little like messed up if I'm not able to separate that cognitive dissonance and know when to turn off and when to turn off the identities. Now, I will say for somebody like me, it's like kind of easy for me to like go in and wear other people's like energy and become different things and still return to like a baseline of who I am. But for most people, they don't have the energy in their body to manage that. And so it leads to this cognitive dissonance, which is that chronic stress, which is that confusion, and which is that anxiety. So you live one life on as an avatar, maybe even Nadia having like an avatar image, but let's just say like it's one of those little faceless things, but in that avatar you're saying like, oh, this is my personality. I don't I'm a top G. Let's see. I'm a top G. I'm alpha. I don't let women tell me what to do. I'm hustling them, whatever. But offline, you're living a different reality. Your life is so much different, which is why Second Life was like really fascinating to me. I was like, people are actually putting themselves through, like, they're going to work and doing the things in real life, and then they're going online and going to work and doing things online like they would do in real life. Okay. I'm going to remind you that your nervous system is not going to recognize which one is real and which one is not. It does not know. If you imagine something, if you dream something, if something happens in real life, it registers it as all real. It doesn't differentiate it, which is why that cognitive dissonance is dangerous to most people. They're not able to be present in their body And then also like, oh, okay, I'm just playing this character for a short period of time, and then I've got to return into myself. And then I've got to recenter, figure out where my energy is, get it back into myself, get myself into rest, get myself into regeneration mode, like my body's repairing, right? So the next psychological danger of being in this splitting of the mind, etheric feels, harmonizing those erratic, free radical vibes in the air. Yeah. You've got to be able to like see it for what it is and call it out for what it is. And not like let your mind just escape into this alternate metaverse. Because you can get stuck in both, I don't know if I want to call them dimensions, but you can get stuck in both metaverses, and then it's not a good thing. I mean, we've all heard the stories of the people that take too much acid and then they're never the same again because they've like shattered their psyche to where their psyche is now bleeding into their physical reality. So the next one is depersonalization and then derealization, okay? So this is when you begin to feel disconnected from your body or from the world around you. It's like watching your life from the outside of yourself. So this overexposure, we were talking about the guy that was working at Meta as an avatar for 30 plus hours a week. You do that week over week, month by month, you start to become that. And he was talking of his symptoms where he was unable to like be online in real life. He was disconnected. So overexposure in these avatar states, overexposure to filters, overexposure to simulations, like I did with Grand Theft Auto, it will start to make your real skin feel fake. You'll feel like you're in this false world. You don't connect with your body anymore. And this wasn't even, I say that like the nervous system is so important. Like ADD or ADHD like rose dramatically in the 80s. Well, look at our timeline here. Look at our timeline in the digital age and tell me that it's not a factor, especially with some of these serious psychological dangers with these case studies that are showing that people are disassociating from their human bodies. I have many male friends, and I hear them say this often about women in their lives. For the record, I'm in my late 50s and married for over 20 years. They often complain about women being... Oh, I'll wait for you to finish the chat. So you have this this inability to feel real in your own skin, to feel real in your own body, to know what your personality is. So the next psychological danger is dissociative identity symptoms. So it's not always a full-on dissociative identity disorder, but it could be fractured personas, right? And thanks for joining, Marcel. It could be fractured personas, right? The person who you think you are is fractured now. Who am I today? Who am I today? That becomes literal. You don't know who you are today. I have friends who have issues with dissociative personalities. They had identity issues. And it is not fun. It hurt me to see them in that position. And I'm glad that I'm learning this about dissociative personalities and dissociative personality, like the identities. And I'm glad I'm doing this whole series because it's like everything that I'm talking about is like 7 degrees separation to Kevin Bacon. Am I right? Like, it's 7 degrees separation or less to the nervous system. It's all nervous system. Your nervous system is like, it's like dictating how your reality is going to be. So, one voice on TikTok, you might have this personality on TikTok, and then at work, you have to be this other identity, and then another one in your AI chats, and maybe another one on Discord, and then maybe another one on Twitch. And so, you have all of these streaming platforms, and you have to be all of these different personas, and each one of them, a lot of people can't fucking hold that. Sorry to say it. A lot of people cannot hold that. And it depends on your energy. A lot of people cannot hold that. They cannot hold being these multiple identities. They develop an identity crisis. In fact, when I was learning about this in my cognitive psychology class, I was trying to identify with it. I was like, I never really had any identity crisis, except for the fact that I just have a fluid identity. In fact, I just don't associate with how other people are holding their identities. And I think it's okay for me to have multiple personalities. I'm okay with having multiple identities. It's like, it's not a bad thing for me. They often complain about women being disrespectful, manipulative, and blowing up, being nasty towards them. Have you seen this type of behavior? They complain about women being disrespectful, manipulative, and blowing up and being nasty towards them. Have you seen this type of behavior? Yeah, like that type of behavior is definitely going on. I just talked about some of that in, I talk about that in my streams, but I was talking about how, like, you can even be just like totally dissociated with yourself. Like when you're in this self-abandonment practice, you can play out a good girl or you can play out a bad girl. You're not playing out a present girl. A present girl is going to be, she's going to have good boundaries. She's not going to be nasty about it. She's going to say, you know what? You're dicking me around and I just don't like that. You're not being clear and I asked you to be clear and you're not doing that, so I've got to go. She's going to have really strong boundaries in that avenue. But a lot of women, it's not even women, men hate themselves too. It's like this, there's like this thread of just insecurity and lack of safety from everybody. And it's like you're in, what do they call the mirror, the house of mirrors. You're in this big ass house of mirrors with all these people who freaking hate themselves. That's really what it is. If you are pointing any words and saying things that are disrespectful about yourself, things that you do to manipulate yourself into staying into poor relationships or getting into poor relationships, or doing things that are against your morals and values, if you're not dealing with your anger and you're like holding it until it like erupts at the wrong time, and then just being nasty, like a lot of people, you'd be surprised on how many people I listen to. And I listen to their words because that's how I connect with people. It's like audibly, visually words. I need the words. And so if I hear somebody say, oh, I'm stupid, I'm dumb, I'm this negative thing, I'm that negative thing, I'm like, dude, who the fuck hurt you? Why are you hurting yourself like that? Why would you talk to yourself like that? Why would you downgrade yourself? I don't want to be around people that are like that. Okay, so now we've seen how this dissociative identity can become this fractured persona, and not too many people are able to handle that and to to wear those things easily. Some people are, not a lot of people. Definitely not a lot of people. And then the other psychological danger is this reduced emotional regulation. So, talking about Marcel Med and the the things that he's saying about women, his male friends are saying about women, is it's coming from a reduced emotional regulation. And it's not that people are bad per se, it's that they're just not taught these things. They're not taught to have emotional and social intelligence and what that is and how to act it out in their life. They're not taught to get mentors and coaches and people to help them to stir the ship to the right spot that they're wanting to go. We just don't have that. It's not a norm in our society. It's a norm in celebrity to have mentors and coaches. It's a norm for, people that are making 100, 200, $1 million a year. It's a norm. They're definitely getting some sort of coaching and mentoring from somewhere because they understand that they need that extra set of eyes to give them to spit the truth, to spit the fire. So if you're experiencing a split self, it may be because your core of who you are, your values, your convictions, your confidence, your worth, it's all weak. You don't have a strong frequency in those areas. And so it's going to make it difficult to ground and to anchor your emotions. And so, yeah, you're going to end up blowing up. You're going to end up being disrespectful. You're going to be nasty. They being the social engineers. Yeah, I mean, there is some social engineering, but we also have to take responsibility for ourselves too. Mm-hmm. So, reduced emotional regulation, which is really what we're striving for here, it's a part of personal mastery, is becoming an emotional master, of becoming a social master. This is beyond how to win friends and influence people. This is how do I interact with others? How do I interact with myself? Am I listening to my emotions? Or have I been programmed from an early age to not have emotions? Because if I have emotions, I'm gonna die. If I'm seen, I'm going to die. Kids are to be seen and not heard. I was watching Harry Potter the other day. I I did a really mass hardcore binge on it. But I was watching Harry Potter. I probably watched the 7 episodes in 3 days or something like that. 7 movies in 3 days. 8 movies in 3 days. I'm watching it. I'm just like, holy shite. Is this Harry Potter even real? Like, how did he become so able to have these, like, he's able to overcome these really difficult challenges in his life? My men friends who have wives like this have disassociated from their wives. Well, it's not disassociating from their wives, they're disassociating from their self. Some are having affairs. Their wives have used sex as a weapon to control their narrative. Yeah, because they're not connected. They got together and their nervous systems are both shot, and they found each other, and they're connected with each other because they both have these poor nervous systems and they don't know how to get out of it. So yeah, they're going to go on and find their new dopamine of affair. Yeah, they're going to use sex as a weapon because that's their dopamine. We're all dopamine addicts when we're not realizing it. It doesn't matter if it's an online addiction. It doesn't matter if it's a drug or alcohol addiction. It doesn't matter if it's a sex addiction. It doesn't matter if it's a work addiction. Like, these are all ways that we can get away and control the narrative and not assume responsibility for ourselves. Yeah, nobody wins. Nobody wins until you step into your own self-worth. You've got to do that. And I'm sorry to say it, but our American Psychology Association, the APA, they're not helping. They're not talking about the things that I'm talking about. This is the fucking problem. Is we're not emotionally regulated. We're not central nervous regulated, and we've got to be. In fact, I hypothesize diabetes, heart disease, erectile dysfunction, feminine, whatever that is, dysfunction, like all of these are stemmed from poor nervous system, like a chronic sympathetic nervous system. That's my hypothesis. And let's look at what what the symptoms are of being in a parasympathetic versus sympathetic nervous system are. That's what I did. It was just really easy. I was like, holy shit, it's just right there. The answer is so easy. But here we are, we're, taking all these psychiatric drugs, we're going to these, couples therapy, and we're just talking about feelings, and nobody's really having any real breakthroughs. It's because we're not even getting down to the base symptom, like the base purpose of what's causing all these symptoms. All the things that you said, Marcel, are always symptoms. Those are all symptoms. Brickfinger, go cold plunge, my friend. If you're not going to cold plunge, at least cold face plunge, because you've got so many nerves here, and this area here, it needs to be stimulated. That's why talking is so important. It stimulates your vagus nerve. So you don't want a system that's nervous. Well, unless it's like parasympathetic nervous. But you don't want to be nervous. You don't want to be anxiety. You don't want to be worrying. Like, we don't want any of that. We want people that are regulated. So it makes it hard to ground into these, ground or anchor into your emotions. And then you become reactive, you become numb, you become deeply avoidant. Like, all of these things will start happening because you cannot regulate your emotional system. And it's a body. It's just like the mind. It's a body that needs to be regulated. Curtis Stone, do cold plunge, gets Curtis Stone does cold plunges to get 8s. That's funny. He do be doing that. All right. So moving on, the spiritual and energetic risks of like staying in this is the loss of soul fragments. So in many traditions, soul retrieval is necessary after trauma or long periods of fragmentation. So if you're looking at doing soul retrievals, and this is like not even digital, this is for a long time outside of that, if you're having these identity crises, it was necessary after trauma, because in a trauma, what you're doing is you're basically like going into survival mode, and then you come out and you're trying to get re-identified with yourself, right? So let's say, like, as a trauma, you experience getting into a car accident. And to get through that, you've had to disassociate your body from your mind in order to make it through all that pain. that you did when you got into the car accident. Okay? There's going to be some soul fragmentation that happens there because you've had to disassociate the body from your mind and your psyche. So when you experience this digital fragmentation, it's trauma disguised as freedom of expression. So when you create this avatar, it's like this digital fragmentation that you don't even recognize as a trauma. Because at first it feels fun and you got the dopamine and you're exploring these new worlds, but eventually you start to get like bogged down by it. It's like, okay, it's kind of draining me now. I don't like it now. And you might see that as freedom of expression. Well, I get to go in and I get to be this avatar. The other things that can happen, the spiritual and energetic risks, is a weakened aura or a weakened field around you. So identity splintering can cause these energetic leaks, which will open you up to influence. It'll open you up to exhaustion or even parasitic dynamics, even the tech-based parasitic dynamics. So when you're weakened, when your field is weakened and your aura is weakened, then you're easily penetrated. You think of the shields around the sci-fi space stations and the sci-fi, spaceships. You have this aura around you. You have this field around you that's protecting you. But if it's weakened, now things can get into it. Now it's going to blow the system up if you let it. So when you feel drained after scrolling, during a video game, during movies, let's say you're doing like a movie binge and you start to feel like a little drained in a relationship, you can feel drained. Just pay attention to that. That's your body is telling you, hey, disconnect. If you're feeling that drain, your field has already been infiltrated. So just be really cognizant of that drained feeling. And then next we have possession archetypes. So when you vacate your body, something else is going to step in. It doesn't matter if it's brand programming, AI suggestion, ideological extremisms, anything that when you have yourself vacated, your body can become possessed by something. Possession is real. And that's where disassociation, these dissociative identities, like it makes it easier for something else to come in. And this is a biblical warning by Jesus saying, be careful about emptying your temple and leaving it vacant. Beware of that. Because if you get rid of one demon, 7 demons are going to come in its place if you leave it. If you vacate yourself. Be present. And that's really what the cross is presence. So in that possession archetype, your avatar is acting through you instead of for you. All right, let's see what we've got here. My men friends are leaving their marriages. It's snowballing out of control. I've always said the number one thing married men need in a marriage is, do you know what it is? The number one thing married men need in a marriage is, well, they need to be trusted. Men need to be trusted and women need to be loved. And that's a symbiotic relationship. Brickfinger says, reincarnation and past life memory is fascinating. I just don't know if it's real. Reincarnating scares me. I talked about this in my podcast with Natural Art Form. Isaac and Alexa over at Natural Art Form had me on their podcast recently. That just dropped last week. It's on Spotify. But we were talking about reincarnation and past life memory, and I'm a little bit more leaning towards past life memory, like as in it's stored in our DNA and we're experiencing that from ancestral past versus the idea of reincarnation. And I just haven't seen that evidence be real in my life, so I have an issue with reincarnation. I don't know if that's necessarily true. Um, nope, it's appreciation. Well, I guess that can be a thing, but I think trusting their sight is probably the best thing instead of sitting there and nagging and arguing about what needs to happen. Wife, I'm being silly. So I both people want to be appreciated. Both people, everybody wants to be appreciated. I think we get recycled, but it's a little dark. Maybe a little bit. What does appreciation mean to you? I mean, it's acknowledging the little things that happen during the day. Like everybody's love language is a little bit different. Some people might want to have quality time together. And so that's awesome. But I really think it comes down to trust, trusting a man to lead the relationship in the way that it needs to go. And that's, parts of the conversation of when you're, before you even get married, is where do you want us to go? And are we having constant check-ins? Are we constantly communicating? Do we have a separation of duties and powers? Like, the man's like, yep, I'm going to bring in the money. I'm going to take care of all the outside stuff. And the woman's like, I'm going to take care of the children and make sure the house is taken care of. So you have this like separation of duties, but you also have to constantly check in and make sure that the big decisions are being discussed together. I mean, appreciation's not going to do anything if there's financial abuse going on. And if a wife can't trust her husband to make responsible financial decisions and discuss that with her, then, she's likely not going to trust him, and that's going to cause some sort of problem in the relationship. But I think it's trust and love, but that's just my opinion. Okay, let's continue moving on. So the social and then I'll end my podcast. But the social and cultural implications here is you're going to have this, and we're starting to see that, right? This mass psychosis. Large populations operate from fragmented identities. In fact, right now, one of them is a freaking trend on social media, neurodivergence. I see it everywhere. Like, where did this word come from? What does that mean to be neurally divergent? And why are people putting this label? I'm definitely not a label wearer, but why are people putting this label on themselves and like flaunting it like it's okay, like it's acceptable? So you're going to start to see large populations operating from these fragmented identities when truth becomes subjective and consciousness, reality collapses. So you get a conspiracy without critical thinking and ideology without compassion. Conspiracy without thinking. Critical thinking is reasoning. It's like that big, it's one of the big functions of our cognitive development. And if you have people operating from all these fragmented identities because they just don't know who they are anymore, because they've split. Harry Potter again, okay? So in Harry Potter, I think it's funny that I use Harry Potter, but it's the best way. Most people have watched it. So in Harry Potter, in Half-Blood Prince, the idea of Horcruxes came up. And if you guys are not familiar, a Horcrux is where you purposefully in the wizard world shatter your soul and you put it into like a piece of jewelry or into a diary, or he put it in a diary, a piece of jewelry, a grail, like a mug or whatever. He was able to split his identity into it. And, as he was asking, like kind of went back into the past, as he's asking, like, what about Horcruxes? Tom Riddle was asking about how do I do Horcruxes and what are they for? And everyone's like, just be really careful because shattering, like splitting your soul like that is not good. Like it's dangerous. But here we are, we're doing it nonstop with all of these avatars and with all of these online identities. And then comes conspiracies. I'm like, okay, you don't like the president, but you also want us to give the guns to the government. You want to have your rights, but you're also going to trample on somebody else's rights. So, yeah, mass psychosis. You're just going to have like a lack of critical thinking. And I started seeing this like a little over 10 years. I was like, they're not, what's going on with the critical thinking? Like the young children are just not experiencing proper reasoning. They're not even thinking about proper reasoning and using critical thinking. The next one is commodification of the self. So not only do we have these avatars, now we have these like personal brand avatars. So I'm TikTok Tammy and I'm over here and I'm selling dresses. And now I had to step into this identity, kind of like an actress, so that I can send you my personal brand. And now Tammy, maybe actually Kim in real life. And so now she's got this Tammy self, and then maybe even has an Instagram or Facebook or, wherever. There's so many selves and they're all monetized. So now you're having like fragment yourself out, and it's going to become harder for your brain. So your attention becomes the product and your soul gets rented out to the highest bidder. Whoever's going to pay me more. I got my TikTok shop. Come over and see my TikTok shop. I don't really have one. Come over and see my TikTok shop. I'm Tammy. Yeah. It's like digital MK Ultra. It's like, it literally is. Dawn. Okay, let's see. I'm missing a whole bunch of comments here. Okay, what does appreciation mean to you? Trust is a big one. Having had a failed marriage. Yeah, Don Pettit had to be explained. He is so neurodivergent. He lost the technology to build back his brain. Poor Don Pettit. I was telling my son about Don Pettit the other day. I was like, the head space NASA space engineer said that we couldn't go back to the moon because it was too hard to get the technology from the 1960s and 70s and to replicate it. He's like, wait, what? And I was like, yeah, did you know that? Marcel says trust is a small part. Many women trust their husbands to lead and make good decisions. The men friends that I have in happy marriages, we all seem to agree our wives are appreciative. Read up on it. Well, I can see, I'm not disagreeing with you, but I think that trust is mostly what the men want. They want their wives to trust their decisions. They want them to trust their leadership. Appreciation can be faked trust too. Welcome to relationship roulette. Integrity, yeah, integrity is a good one. I did a really good 9 emotional competencies of an attractive man. And so, I really encourage people, if you're super interested in having a little bit more dialogue, to go there, and we can have a chat in the comment section. It's a common thread. Appreciation can be as simple as a thank you. We are natural providers and don't want to feel like ATMs. Yeah, I guess. It's a painful process. Oh, Don Pettit. All right, let's keep going. I have one more. We're going to talk about so the last societal and cultural implication is AI symbiosis without boundaries. So now, with fragmented minds, we're more willing to let AI make our decisions and speak for us, and finish our thoughts if we're so fragmented and so splintered in our mind that we can't even possess any good, strong cognitive function, okay? So the more splintered you are, the easier it is to puppeteer you. Hi, Mike, Mr. Kramer. So the AI symbiosis now is coming into this. I've seen it where this guy was going to break up with his wife because she wouldn't let ChatGPT make decisions for them. She wouldn't refer to ChatGPT to make decisions. And he's like, that's all I do, and I'm breaking up with you. I'm not even breaking up, divorcing you. So over time, not just for ourselves, but for all of our culture, you become unrecognizable to yourself. You feel everything and nothing all at once. And then you lose the thread of your personal myth, which is why I do the Soulestic Soul Maps. It helps to bring you back to a centered presence with yourself, to see what your gifts are and highlight it. And it's so valuable to hear somebody from the outside window come in. It's such a relief to come in and give you the spit truth of this is you. This is your values. These are the things that you're good at. Here's the themes in your life. Watch out for the good parts and the shadow parts of it. You know, these things, this is your shadow, but here's your gift. Here's how you can even rise above even your gifts and become just a shining, present, emotionally regulated person. Here's how you strategize. Here's how you make decisions. You know, maybe you've got to, maybe you're a reflector like me and you have to wait a long 28-day cycle because you don't have the inner authority to make decisions instantly. If you're a splenic projector, you do. If your nervous system is regulated, you do have that ability. You just got to want it. So if you want a soul map, I am doing a special this July only. It's $125. You get a full comprehensive report, and you get 30 minutes, 30 to 40 minutes with me, depending on the complexity of your chart. And we just go over it and we anchor it all in. This is what you need to work on. Here's your goals, and get to it. And then now you have a mission, a personal mission towards personal mastery. And it's so freaking valuable. Even me with like the undefined G center of purpose and identity and self gained so much from, I compiled this all together. This is all my burst of brilliance for people to see themselves, to see who they are, to see where they're going, take to soul retrieve and take the fragments of themselves and put themselves back together. Putting Humpty fucking Dumpty back together again is what I'm doing. Sorry for the curse words. So when you lose thread of your own personal myth, when you become unrecognizable to yourself, you don't even know who you are in the mirror anymore because your identity is shattered. And then you can feel everything and you're like overwhelmed or nothing and you're just numb. That's an ultimate tragedy because you came through here in a portal to come here and experience this life. It's so unique. It's not like any other realms out there. This is a unique realm where we get a body. That's why all these other entities are like trying to trick us and become embodied in us. They're trying to disembody us so they can embody themselves in us. That's why it's in the myths. It's why it's in the stories. It's because there's a truth there. That's all that Jesus was doing here. If you read about go read about what Jesus did. He was literally healing people and releasing demons from people's bodies because they were so disembodied in themselves. Religion had taken them off the wrong path. It was there to hold on to stories, but it was being misused and abused. So much so that they killed their savior. They killed their Messiah. It's a story. It's a fractal. That's why we're here in the first place. We're here to have this inner body present experience and to help others in service to them in any way that we can, any of our gifts. And you've got to figure out what are those gifts, what's going to give me, what's going to fulfill me, what's going to fulfill my purpose, what's going to fulfill me in my life's work, what's going to give me the radiance to become the best human I can be, to become the most connected and magnanimous. That's what we're here for. So what we're talking about, identities, that center, it's that first heart. So you've got two hearts. You've got the ego heart, and then you've got the identity love heart. Okay, so there's two hearts. Even though there's one physical heart, there's two energy hearts. And that's where your identity, one of it's where your identity, love, and direction nests. This is where your service nests. Your service to others nests. Okay? So if you have a tendency to have a fragmented identity and not a fluid identity, it's fragmented because you can't hold the identities and it causes drainage to you. You probably don't have that center, you have that center defined. You're not one to go and taste the rainbow of identities like the fluid identity people are. And it's not a lot of people that can do that. Okay? All right. Well, with that, I'm going to conclude. I'm going to read the rest of our chats here. Let's look at Marcel's comment, though, before we sign off today. So Marcel says, if you feel it's trust, I don't think it will keep us married men around. Ladies, be appreciative. It shows respect. We will open up to you. We will be better communicators. It makes the entire relationship stronger in all aspects, emotional, physical. It all starts there. Long-term married men, common thread. I'm not saying appreciation is not like super important, but it's reciprocal. Okay, well, I've got to go. I've got people calling me. I've got a birthday to go to. So let me sign off. Thank you guys so much. I'll be back on tomorrow. We're going to be talking digital brothels. So that's going to be a little spicy one for the books. But we're going to be talking about like OnlyFans and any other digital brothel style things. And we're going to be talking about the impact and maybe a little bit of historical comparison and where it's going. So I hope you guys have a wonderful day. Please like, comment, subscribe, and share. And I appreciate you guys. It's been a really fun part of the series, and we're going to keep on going until we get to the bottom of it all, and I can create my TED Talk over it, try to compress it down to 15 minutes. Anyways, cheers. Have a good day.